When I was in high school, I had a really good friend. Let's call him Jake. We were practically inseparable, always looking for something to do in our small town. But one night, we stumbled into something we never should have, something that still haunts me to this day. Jake lived next door to a house with a strange history. For as long as I could remember, that house was always up for sale. Families would move in, stay for a few months, and then vanish, sometimes in the middle of the night. No explanations, no goodbyes, just gone. The house had never had the same owner for more than 6 months in a row. We used to joke about how it must be haunted, but we never really believed it. That is, until one freezing December night. We were bored out of our minds, just hanging out in his room, when Jake got this wild idea. Let's check out the house next door. At first, I laughed it off. Dude, that place is empty for a reason. So? That makes it the perfect place to explore, he said with a grin. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? Famous last words. We crept out of his house and crossed the backyard toward the eerie, darkened house. There was no sign of life, no lights, no furniture visible through the windows, just a hollow shell of home that had seen too many owners come and go. The back door was locked, but Jake, always a daring one, found a doggy door just big enough for him to crawl through. I stood outside, watching as he disappeared into the shadows. A few moments later, I heard a faint click, and the door creaked open. "Welcome to my humble abode," Jake whispered dramatically. I stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with dust, and something else, something I couldn't quite place. The house wasn't anything special, probably built in the 1950s, a simple craftsman-style home with wooden floors that creaked under our feet. In the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the windows, we could make out the kitchen, which had this beautiful built-in breakfast nook. It looked like a picture from an old magazine, frozen in time. We weren't really sure what we were looking for, so we just sat down on the floor, facing the table, and started talking. About school, about life. Anything to make the eerie silence feel less oppressive. But then it happened. Out of nowhere, Jake let out a scream, loud and raw, like something had just stabbed him. Before I could even react, everything went black. And I don't mean I closed my eyes or the lights went out. It was like my entire body was swallowed by darkness. A sickening coldness wrapped around me, seeping into my bones, making my skin prickle. It wasn't just cold. It was wrong, something unnatural. I tried to move, tried to breathe, but I was paralyzed. Then I felt it. Something was on me. I couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but I felt it. A presence so heavy, so suffocating, that it made my stomach twist in knots. My fingers grasped at the air blindly, my chest tightening with panic. And then Jake yanked my arm hard. My vision snapped back in an instant, and the warmth of the outside world rushed over me like a crashing wave. We were standing under the streetlight. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I looked at Jake, panting, his face pale as a ghost. What the hell just happened? I gasped. Jake swallowed hard, his eyes darting back toward the house. You didn't see it? See what? He hesitated, then whispered. There was something under the table. My blood ran cold. It was black, like pure black. No face, no features. Just the outline of a girl. It crawled out while you were talking, and it sat on you. I felt like I was going to be sick. You were just sitting there, eyes wide open, reaching around like you couldn't see. I freaked out and pulled you out. Neither of us said a word after that. We just ran back to his house, locked the door, and sat in silence, trying to shake the horror of what had just happened. For days afterward, I felt off, like something was watching me, just out of sight. The feeling of that blackness, that cold, stuck to me like tar. I couldn't shake it. Even now, years later, I still get chills thinking about it. And I never walked past that house again. Have you ever lived somewhere so strange that it felt like a mystery waiting to be solved? As a kid, I thought my house was just quirky, until I discovered a hidden attic that had been right above me my entire life. What I found inside, well, I still have nightmares about it. I grew up in the weirdest house you could imagine. It was bizarrely tall and thin, almost like a townhome that had broken free and decided to stand alone. 3 floors, a basement, and, though I didn't know at the time, an attic. The house was full of strange details, like 2 working fireplaces, a tiny backyard barely big enough to turn around in, and a fully functional dumbwaiter running from the kitchen straight up to my bedroom. It was old, charming, and, as I would come to learn, hiding something. Moving out of that house was bittersweet. It had its issues, so many creaks and groans in the night, a plumbing system that seemed older than time itself. But I loved it. Still, my parents had finally had enough of its endless repair costs. It was time to go. The discovery of the hidden attic packing up my childhood belongings was an ordeal. Being a kid, my idea of packing mostly involved shoving things into whatever available space I could find. My closet, for instance, became an impenetrable wall of stuffed animals, old toys, and clothes mashed together so tightly they had become a single, solid mass. As I pulled things down, making room, I spotted something I had never noticed before, a small, square panel in the ceiling. Curious, I stood on my makeshift clothes mountain and pushed up on the panel. It gave way with surprising ease, revealing a dark hole leading to somewhere. I had lived in this house for 8 years, and never once had I known we had an attic. Armed with a flashlight and the reckless courage of childhood, I hoisted myself up. The moment my head breached the opening, I knew something wasn't right. The attic wasn't pitch black, like I had expected. Instead, a dim, reddish glow filled the space. Old Christmas lights, strung up long ago, still flickered weakly, as if desperately clinging to life. The air was stale, thick with dust and something else, something faintly metallic. Then I noticed the cracks. Thin slivers of light poked through the wooden floor, illuminating what lay beneath. I could see directly into the bedrooms below, into my bedroom. The thought made my stomach twist. Had someone been watching us? As I climbed fully into the attic, my flashlight swept across the space, revealing more unsettling details. Insulation had been pushed aside and covered with plastic sheeting. A gurney, an actual hospital-style gurney, lay in the corner, piled with sleeping bags and old, tattered sheets. And then, sitting against the wall, was a rusted, mint-green refrigerator. Out of morbid curiosity, I pulled the handle. It still worked, humming faintly as I opened it. Empty, but it had power. That meant someone had been up here. Recently. Then my flashlight caught something else. Something worse. Bones. Piles and piles of bones. They were stacked haphazardly in the center of the attic. Some big, some small, some looking disturbingly human-like. The sheer variety was overwhelming. I had no knowledge of anatomy, but I could tell these bones weren't from just one type of animal. Some were large, curved, others tiny and delicate. 2 of the piles were blackened, as if someone had tried to burn them. The walls nearest these burned bones were scrawled with dark, charred smudges. At first, I thought they were just random stains. Then I saw the words. Written in soot, in jagged, erratic letters, was a single word, repeated multiple times. Sorry. My heart pounded. The weight of realization settled on my chest. Someone had lived in this attic. Someone who had access to our home, who could watch us from above through the cracks in the floorboards. Someone who had collected and burned bones, and then regretted it. I suddenly felt very, very exposed, as if I wasn't alone, as if someone might still be there, lurking just beyond the edges of my flashlight's beam. I scrambled down, shoved the attic panel closed, and never spoke a word of it to my parents. We moved out a week later. I never checked to see if my parents knew about the attic. I didn't want to know, but I can't help but wonder, who lived up there? Were they still coming and going? What happened in that attic before we moved in? And, perhaps most disturbing of all, why did they feel sorry? Some nights, I still dream about that house. The dumbwaiter, the gurney, the glowing red attic, and those bones, sitting in the dark, right above my head for all those years. If you ever find a hidden attic in your house, maybe just leave it alone. Have you ever been so tired while driving that you just had to pull over? Well, I did, but I made the worst mistake of my life. In the middle of nowhere, something, or someone, was watching me. And when I finally tried to leave, he came running, screaming. I still don't know what would have happened if he caught me. This happened about 2 years ago when I was driving home from a family reunion. It was late, way past midnight, and I had a solid 2-hour drive ahead of me. I had considered staying the night, but I had work early the next morning. So, like an idiot, I decided to make the drive home. The route was mostly long, winding roads cutting through dense forests. The kind of road that's pitch black at night, except for your headlights. Occasionally, another car would pass by, but for the most part, it felt like I was the only one out there. About 45 minutes into the drive, exhaustion hit me hard. It was like my body suddenly decided it was shutting down. I tried rolling down the windows, blasting music, even slapping my own face. Nothing worked. I knew I couldn't keep going like this, but there were no gas stations or rest stops in sight. So I did something I thought was smart, but it turned out to be the worst decision of my life. I pulled over on the side of the road, driving just far enough into the grass and behind some bushes so that passing cars wouldn't see me. It felt a little creepy, but I told myself it's just for a quick nap. 20 minutes, and I'll be good to go. I checked the time. 11:22 p.m. I locked the doors, leaned my seat back, and closed my eyes. And at first, nothing happened. Underscore, 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 underscore. The first noise. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I woke up to a faint scratching sound, like nails against metal. My brain was still foggy with sleep. I barely processed it, but when I looked at the clock, it read 11:50 p.m. I sat there for a moment, listening, but the sound was gone. Maybe it was just a branch scraping against the car, I thought, or an animal sniffing around. Either way, I was too tired to care, so I went right back to sleep. When I woke up again, the noise was louder, persistent, a rhythmic scratching against my car. I checked the time. 12:40 a.m. That's when I started feeling uneasy. If it was an animal, why would it come back almost an hour later? And why was the sound so deliberate? I slowly reached for my phone and used the screen's glow to check my mirrors. And that's when I saw it. A shadow darting away into the forest. I barely caught a glimpse of it, but it looked like a person, not an animal. A person. At that moment, my heart was pounding. I was sitting alone in the dark on an isolated road, and someone had been right next to my car, scratching at it. Then I remembered something. That urban legend. The one about the couple who parked on a lonely road and kept hearing a noise. The one where the guy gets out to check, and the next thing you know, BM, hook-handed maniac, dead body. Yeah, I turned my key, started the engine, and got the hell out of there. I was speeding now, just trying to put as much distance as possible between me and whatever was out there. My headlights cut through the darkness, and just as I rounded a bend, I saw it. A car, parked on the side of the road, just a little ahead of me. The driver's side door was wide open. I slowed down slightly, just enough to glance inside. No one was there. The seat was empty. The car was running, but whoever had been driving was gone. That's when the hair on my arms stood up. Something didn't feel right. My gut was practically screaming at me to go. And then I looked in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't see anything, just the empty road behind me. But then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared. A man, sprinting, straight at me. I could barely process it. He was coming from behind the bend I had just passed, running full speed, arms pumping like he was in a full-blown chase. And then he started screaming. Hey, you, get the F*** out of your car. Now. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know what would have happened if I had stopped, but I wasn't to find out. I slammed my foot on the gas and took off. I didn't stop until I reached a well-lit gas station, nearly 20 minutes away. I sat there in the gas station parking lot, heart pounding, hands shaking. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting that guy to come sprinting out of the darkness again. but he never did. To this day, I have no idea what that was about. Was he the one scratching my car? Was it some kind of setup where I was supposed to get out and check that abandoned car? Or was he running from something worse? I'll never know. What I do know is this. Never pull over on a dark, empty road. If you're tired, find a gas station, a motel, anywhere with lights and people. Because you never know who or what might be out there. Stay safe and stay awake. Have you ever had a terrifying experience on the road? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more creepy encounters. Stay safe out there.